All right.
Take two.
I think we're good now. We're back
Maybe.
on.
I think we're on this time. We see us in the feed. Thank you everybody for letting us know that you weren't seeing us, because we would have kept talking like that for a while. We would have never known. So I appreciate it. We're going to give everybody just a minute to hop on, because we confused everybody by having to cancel the other feed, and so now we're back on. We'll just give everybody a minute. Let us know if you're able to get back on. We love your comments. We love to see the good mornings and the hellos, just to know that you're on. So we'll just give this just a minute, and I'm going to steal another sip of my husband's coffee while I do it. Uh-huh.
Nope.
Yes,
Nope.
I want to.
All right, so.
All right, well, I think it may take a minute for things to come up, so we're just going to chat for a minute. I don't see anybody hopping on yet, but since the video started, we're just going to chat a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing while we were out with COVID restrictions, because COVID has kind of brought a lot of things to a halt. Hey, Cindy, how you doing?
All right.
Yay!
We know the feed is out there. So.
Woohoo! We made it! All right.
So yeah, I was saying before we determined the video wasn't working, I was saying that Luke and I, my oldest son, we rebuilt our side porch. And it was quite a project, but we actually finished. And we were rushing against daylight, so we had, it was really pretty much dark by the time we were cleaning stuff up. So, but we got it finished, not painted, but the deck is rebuilt. The other thing that I was able to do a couple weeks ago is really organize my workshop, and been wanting to do that for a while, so got to do that, and I feel much more, I feel good about that, I guess that's what I want to say. So
it's always nice when you feel like you can accomplish something that's been on your bucket list for a while. So for me, I was telling him last night as he was talking about some of these more project-based things that he's gotten done over these last few weeks, I can honestly say I spent a little bit more time with self-care, which I think in the busy, hectic lives that we live is also something that we forget. And I was really thinking over these last couple of weeks how much God has been teaching me how to look at life differently, because in I guess it's a little bit of, I'm kind of a get her done kind of girl, and I have this thought process of just, I go from one thing to the next and I conquer it, and I really feel like I'm learning how to nurture life as opposed to conquer it, and it's just a really eye-opening, totally spinning life on its axis and just looking at it from a different lens and nurturing the most important things in my life, my family. And believe it or not, I even got my closet cleaned out in the middle of that too, which is good. It's always nice to clean out your closet. So it seemed like the right thing to do in the midst of everything. So, yeah.
all right, so let us know what you've been able to accomplish during the COVID restrictions, perhaps some things that you've been putting off for a while now. But I believe we have some bread that you want to make.
Yeah, so...
and that I want to eat.
Yeah, so the best part about these cooking demonstrations is I want to share some of our fun things with you, but then Dan always knows what he's getting for dinner that night, because whatever I cook for you is going to be on our dinner table later, so he's usually not too sorry about that. But we're going to be sharing a story with you later. Dan's going to be sharing a story with you, but we wanted to start with the cooking segment because I'm going to be teaching a little bit about bread making today, because I think it's something that I know a lot of people that are just really apprehensive about. I have a good friend that anytime she sees yeast in a recipe, she's like, oh, I don't know. So this is like Pantry Basics 101, Bread Making 101. You don't need any frilly, crazy equipment. You don't need anything but a few simple ingredients from your pantry and 2 hands ready to work, because it's fun and it's easy. This is a really good thing to do with your kids too. So if you've got kids at home and they need something to do, this is a good way to make a little bit of a mess, but not too much of a mess. And it's like very therapeutic to work dough. It's like sculpting. For me, it's an art form. So a little something about bread making. So the only things that you need to make the basic, most basic bread is you're going to need some flour, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of yeast, a little bit of salt, and then we have butter here and some water. So it can't get any easier than that. And I will, as always, I'll post this recipe later so you have the full details of all the measurements. So if you do want to make this at home, you can. We're going to do this in 2 parts, so I'm going to show you just how to get the dough together today. Next week, I'm going to take you into a bunch of different things that you can do with this basic bread dough recipe. So we're going to get started here by just proofing our yeast. This is the only part that seems to intimidate people. It is otherwise no different than a box mix or anything else. So all we're gonna do is actually just proof our yeast, and it's gonna look like this when we're done. So if you've never proofed yeast before, and Dan, if you wanna take that out of the camera, maybe you can give it a shot right underneath it. This is what the end product of proofed yeast looks like.
Okay, let's see if we can get this close enough. So this is proofed yeast.
Yeah, so we're adding 1/2 cup of water into our bowl, all right? We're adding 1/2 cup of water with a little dash of sugar, and then we're gonna put our yeast into the water and the sugar mixture. And the water needs to be a little bit warm, but not hot. Hot will kill yeast, so you just want nice warm water. It should feel nice and warm on your wrist, and we're gonna put all that right into the bowl, okay? And if you are measuring your yeast, if you buy the big packs from Sam's Club like I do, you'll use about a tablespoon, because this is going to make a big ginormous loaf of bread, or 2 small loaves. You can do it either way. If you're using these packets, you would use 2 of the packets, and that would be the same thing. All right, but we're going to go ahead and just proof this, and what that just means is I mix it together and I just set it aside for a few minutes, and it turns into this beautiful little blob that Dan just showed you, okay?
So again, you'll be able to watch this video when we're done. Watch Angie make this again. But
okay, while your yeast is proofing in your bowl, you're going to take a small saucepan and you're going to melt 1/4 cup of butter in it. You can substitute canola oil or vegetable oil if you want to use something that's not saturated, that's fine. But you're going to melt 1/4 cup of butter in here, and then you're going to add 1 cup of warm water. And once that gets all melted together and warm, we're going to add it to the yeast mixture. So these are just all together in our bowl hanging out, all right? That's the hardest thing we have to do for making bread. It is so easy, so easy.
And if you have questions now or later, you can certainly post those, or you could actually message us using Third Space's Facebook site, or whatever contact you have for us. But you can ask questions now too if there's something that comes to mind.
Okay, so to my warm mixture here, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt, which I'm just going to mix in to this nice warm little mixture of water and butter and yeast. Sugar and salt, we're mixing it together. And that is the essential. From here, all we have to do is start adding flour. So I'm going to add a couple cups of flour.
While you're doing that, I just want to say hi to Donna, Angela, and Amy. Good to see you all. And some of you are, excuse me, some of you are starting to talk about what some of the things that you've been doing over these COVID restrictions.
So much Netflix. I love it. Awesome. All right, so what we've got here in the bowl is we've got our mixture with a couple cups of flour in it. You're going to see it's still pretty loose. So I'm going to take and add 1/3 cup of flour into my bowl so that I can get it kind of mixed up into a ball. And then we're going to start kneading this once I can get it up into a ball, and then I'm going to turn the mic back over to Dan at that point. But all I'm doing right now is working another cup of flour into this mixture.
Van found us again. I'm glad you found us, Van. Sorry about the technical issues.
It happens. All right, so I have kind of a shaggy mixture that's come into a ball now. All right, so it's ready to throw onto the table here, and I'm going to just take a little bit more of my flour. I'm going to sprinkle it here on my table, and I'm going to add.
So if you like to be messy, this is like an excuse to be messy. You just kind of throw your flour on the
Yes,
the table.
This is why it's ideal for kids. This is a really fun thing to do. All right, so all we're going to do now is we're going to just start turning this and kneading it. You're going to see me while Dan's talking continuing to add little bits of flour because I'm just going to start kneading the dough and getting it into a nice elasticy kind of smooth ball, okay? And in the meantime, while I do that, Dan is going to tell you a little bit something else about the coffee house.
Yeah. So just want to say hi to Wendy and Kathy, Deb. Good to hear from you, and Diane.
Hi, everybody.
Awesome. Good to see you all on. So one of the things, if you've been to the coffee house, Third Space, before, one of the things that probably catches your eye as soon as you walk in the door is the wall behind us. And people will call this shiplap, barnwoods, different names for it, but it really is a very nice accent wall. And a lot of people ask us, well, how did you do that and get the wood for that? So this was part of our design from the beginning, and normally this type of wood is actually somewhat expensive, but we found a lumber yard in Lancaster. This wood had been sitting outside for at least a year or more, and so it got that nice rustic kind of look to it, but they were selling the wood actually fairly cheap. And this is white oak, by the way, the wood, and white oak is a little more expensive. A lot of times red oak or other types of wood are used, but white oak, apparently the trees grow much slower, therefore it makes the wood actually a little more expensive. But yeah, so this white oak just fit perfect. Now you should have seen us putting this wall up, because it looks like it's fairly simple. You just cut the pieces, put them up, but the pieces are bowed and not straight and different pieces. So we literally have like a guy hanging off of one of the pieces of wood to try to bend it while we would nail it in.
It was crazy. Oh my goodness.
It was quite the process.
I would come in to like bring lunch, because we would always make lunch for the guys that were here working, and I'd come in and see Dan like dangling from the ceiling, and I'm going, what are you doing? It was crazy.
Yeah, but the wall does look beautiful, and actually you can't really see it too much except behind us, but this right here, this counter or bench, is actually the same wood as what's on the wall here. The only difference really is that the wood for the counter we sanded down, we planed it, and of course it has a nice varnish on it. But same wood. So we were very blessed to be able to find this lumber yard in Lancaster that had this wood, and we actually did our barista area too, the barista counter. So where the baristas work. The same wood that's on the wall here is decorates that there. So
Very cool.
yeah. Hey, Brittany.
How's it going?
And Sue, good to see you, Sue. Good to hear from you.
All right. And my mom is already texting me saying, this looks so good, I want my hands in that dough. My mom and I have this dough fetish. We just love playing with dough. It's super fun, really. It's kind of like adult Play-Doh, so I consider myself to be a little bit childlike, I guess, when I use it. But I know that it is, I'm kind of an amateur here. We're just amateur home cooks here, so if anything didn't make sense here, please let us know. But I hope that you saw how simple this was. All I did was mix together a few simple ingredients, and all I've been doing since then is just pushing them together with my hands until I get them into this nice, smooth, elasticy ball of dough. It's a little bit sticky to my hands, see, but not too sticky. It took about 4 cups of flour total to get me there. But this dough is going to turn into something incredibly delicious, and you can go a million different ways with it. We're going to make standard bread with it for dinner tonight, which the guys are going to love. But
oh yes,
this can also turn into cinnamon rolls. This can turn into dinner rolls. This can turn into anything that you would normally make with yeast. If you're trying to be more health conscious and you want to add some whole wheat flour to this, it's also an option. I would not recommend going completely whole wheat flour with this because it will make a very heavy dough, but you could go half and half if you wanted to use half white and half whole wheat. That would also be fine. But this dough is now ready just to be placed in a somewhere warm in your house, and all you have to do then with this is get a nice big bowl. Pam cooking spray is going to be your friend because dough is a little bit sticky. You just want to spray your bowl with some cooking spray, and you're going to set your dough right down inside of it, and you're going to cover it with a nice light tea towel like this, and we're going to set it to rise. So you just put it in a warm place, and you're going to let it rise until it's at least double in size. We're going to pick back up here next week, and we'll talk about all the things you can do with the dough now that you've made it. But as you can see, it took me all of 10 minutes to throw together. It's so easy. So
if once it rises, then how long do you let it set?
I usually let it rise for at least an hour and a half. I am a fan of proofing. The experts will say you can over knead or overproof. I'm sure they're right. I haven't found that to be the case, so I'm going to let this rise for at least an hour and a half. because I want it to be nice and puffy, and it doesn't hurt it to let it rise. You just want to make sure that it doesn't dry out. So make sure it's covered with a tea towel, make sure it's covered tightly with plastic wrap or whatever, and just leave it set for at least an hour and a half until it gets nice and big and puffy.
And then just throw it in the oven?
And then there's a lot more to it than that. So they can go in a million directions with it after that. After that, we can shape it and put it in a bread pan. After that, we can shape it and make rolls, which we'll cover next week.
Oh, okay. So maybe you have to wait till next week.
So next week's part 2.
Finished product, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, awesome. So great to see everybody on again today, and was fun to be with you. I can always tell when we're getting to the end of our coffee break together because my coffee's just about empty, so somehow it just always works out that I'm just on the last couple sips as we're ending. But thanks for hopping on, and we did have a few tech issues at the beginning, but got those worked out. Good to see you all back. And next week we will plan to be together again Thursday at 10 o'clock.
Yep, and we'll pick up part 2 on bread making, and the big reveal next week for Nutella hot chocolate will happen because we did finish perfecting the recipe. I can tell you, it's not low calorie. The end product is delicious, but not healthy. So I'm just going to throw it out there, but we'll definitely unveil that. So we'll see if there's something different in Dan's coffee cup next week.
All right, and I will be thinking of you all as I am eating fresh rolls for dinner. There's nothing better, by the way, than the smell of bread, homemade bread. So
it makes your house smell incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And it can dress up a really simple meal. So
yep.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Well, hey, grace and peace to all of you, blessings, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for being with us this morning.